FlossTube. My name is Laura and I am the Nerdy Needle. Today's video is about how you can convert a paper chart to a PDF, which then you can use in the GoodReader app where you can annotate it. The process is pretty straightforward and I'm going to walk you through how to do it step by step. Now I'm an iPhone user and I also use my iPad for my actual annotation. I don't know about Androids. So on the iPhone, you have to change the setting on the camera to the older JPEG format. There's a newer format that I guess takes up less memory, and so iPhones are now using it. But GoodReader, you need to put it into JPEG for all of this to work. The change is very easy. You just do it in your settings, and I'm going to show you how to do it. For Android users, you're going to need to look to see what format your camera makes. It needs to be JPEG, so you might need to Google how to change your settings on your camera to JPEG from, I don't know if Android is using this newer format also or not, but you'll need to look to see how you can set up your phone so it's taking JPEGs. From there on out, the process should be the same for both users. This is a great way to annotate your charts. You can cross out your stitches. I use GoodReader because it's really easy to put in diagonal lines since I stitch on the diagonal. There's all sorts of things that you can take advantage of, and I think it's a great way to do all of your charting. So I'm going to walk you through step by step. You might want to take screenshots of the instructions that I give you because if you do this, you're going to be doing it pretty sporadically and you're going to forget how to do it in between, which is what I always do, and then I have to try to remember what the steps are for doing this. So I've got screenshots of my note cards also, because then I won't have to spend 20 minutes trying to figure out how to do this again. So anyways, this is how you convert a paper chart into a PDF, which then you can annotate in the GoodReader app. I hope you find this helpful, and here we go. I'm going to walk you through how I convert paper patterns for cross-stitch to PDFs, which I use inside of the GoodReader app. Before I get going on how to do this, I will remind you that you should never ever share digital images of your patterns with anyone. These are copyrighted, and we need to make sure that we are financially supporting all of the artists who provide us with the fantastic array of patterns that we can stitch. So if you like a pattern, then please purchase a second copy of it to gift to your friend. Never ever pass on a digital copy or even a paper copy really to another person, because it's just not fair to all of the artists that give us these patterns. So the first step that you're going to need to do is change your iPhone settings. So the way to do that is you go into your settings menu, you find camera, which is a ways down, and you click on formats, and then you select most compatible. That's the JPEG version of your camera, and that's going to be easier to convert. The next step is to take some photographs of your chart, and this is someplace where you want to spend some time. You're going to spend a lot of time looking at your charts. Hours and hours of work are ahead of you, and you want to make sure that the charts that you have are going to be really high quality. So make sure that you've framed it correctly, that your camera is square to the paper, that you're not shooting at an angle. Make sure that you have good lighting and that you're not casting shadows. If it's a larger chart, you're going to have to do overlaps between sections. You could certainly try using your panorama feature on your phone. That's one option. Or you can just do overlaps. But make sure that you're very careful with how you do your overlaps, because if you don't do them with some logic behind it, it's going to be a bit cumbersome once you get to the edge of one photo and heading into the next one. The first pattern that I did this with, my overlaps were rather sloppy, and it was a bit of a hassle figuring out exactly where the overlap was for the next image. There were a few times I had to drag out the paper copy and kind of find where I was on the paper, so that I could track down what the next image was going to be. Ever since then, I've been more systematic about my overlaps, and I haven't had that problem anymore. Finally, make sure that if you zoom in, that that the symbols are clear, that the backstitching lines are clear. Check in the four corners, check in the middle. Make sure that if there was a fold in the paper, that the symbols on the fold are clear. So really spend some time making sure that your photographs are of the highest quality that you can make them. If you have a large chart, spending half an hour doing this is time very well spent. So please don't save on this step. Should be the most time-intensive step by far of this entire process. So the app that I use is called GoodReader. You can get it for $6. That's the basic version, which has every feature that a stitcher would use except for one, unfortunately. The feature that the base version doesn't have is the JPEG to PDF converter. But you can get the add-on monthly subscription for $3 a month to get the Pro Pack, which does have that converter in it. There is a 1 week free trial, so you could use that also. The Pro Pack doesn't have anything else in it that would be useful for a stitcher, but it does have a bunch of things that could be useful for you in other aspects of your life, so you can take a look at them. There's a lot of encryption, that type of thing. If you're like me and you're getting really annoyed with all of these stupid subscriptions, then you could just get GoodNotes for $8 and then use that to do your JPEG to PDF conversion. It adds maybe at the most 5 minutes to the process, so it's really not that much. And if you're like me and getting really annoyed with all of these nickel and dime subscriptions that then you forget about them, and then you're just paying $3 here and $5 there for something that you're not using anymore, then going through GoodNotes might be the way to go. And of course, there's lots of other conversion apps, and you can certainly use those. So to do your conversion, you're going to do that from inside of the GoodReader app. So let's go to that. So this is what GoodReader looks like. It has its navigation at the bottom. So you go Manage Files, and then you're going to Import Photos. There's my stitching photos. I'm just going to do one, but you obviously would do all of them together. So then you import, and now that is imported as a JPEG. We need to convert this to a PDF. And I have the Pro Pack. Actually, I bought it years ago. They had a deal on it, and so I don't have the monthly subscription on this because I'm kind of grandfathered in. So you click on that. I'm going to immediately zoom in so you don't have any part of the chart that makes sense. So again, this is a JPEG. This is not useful for annotation. So we're going to convert this to a PDF. You're going to use the export button and click convert to PDF. And now you have it as a PDF. These are useful to rename. So to do that, I'm just going to rename one of them. And I should have actually renamed the JPEG, but I forgot. So you're going to select it, and then it says rename. And I'm just going to call this page 1. And then go done. So let's take a look at how, what are the features that I use. Now you have your annotation menu on the side. Sometimes this disappears like that, and then if you tap the screen, it reappears. If you want it to just stay there, you click on that pin, and then it's permanently pinned on there. So the annotation tools that I use are the line, the eraser, and the freehand. The line I use to draw in my diagonals. Since I stitch on the diagonal, it's really handy to have those drawn in for me. So you select the diagonal, and I just keep editing the same file over and over again. Remember that the JPEG is still there. So if something really funky happens, I can just quickly convert it again and have a fresh PDF. So I really don't need to have a separate annotated copy. I'm just going to annotate this one. So up here, you can change your colors. I'm going to go with my diagonals being blue. And let's actually just start drawing this and see what we get. So you just tap, and then you drag it in. And to put these diagonals in, like right where I'm at with the intersection of the 10 by 10 square, that's where I check to make sure that I'm running at a 45-degree angle. And obviously I would continue this on, and I would be doing it fully zoomed in, zoomed out. So I would be doing this on the same page, or for the entire chart. If I decide that I want to change this, I just tap the line. I can change the opacity to a little bit lighter. I kind of like that better. You can change the thickness of it. That's a little too much. You can change the color. This is where you would delete it. It's at the end of this menu. So that's how you add in a diagonal. Let's just do one more. This is not a particularly confetti-heavy chart. So I tend to stitch 20 across. Like so. And so I now have my diagonals. Obviously, I would do this for the entire page. It takes a while, but it doesn't take that long, and it's really convenient if you're stitching on the diagonal. For marking the chart, I use the freehand tool. I'm going to use a different color, make it a little darker, and then you just drag your finger across, or you could do individual stitches like that. So I just did all of the stars. If I decide that I don't like that, I can just erase. The erasing tool only works on the freehand. It doesn't work on the lines. If you want to erase the lines, you have to tap the line and then hit the delete button and really delete, and then it goes away. So those are the annotation features that I use on GoodReader. You can certainly customize it to yourself. If you use the parking method, you could mark with a contrasting color where you parked your threads. I actually did that for a while and then realized that it really didn't make a whole lot of sense for the way that I do things. But, you know, the sky's the limit as far as how you mark up your chart. There's a bunch of these that will not work because, see, like the highlighting tool, because this is symbols, it's not really seeing it as a actual like text file. So really, you're kind of stuck using the freehand tool. But honestly, I prefer it because you can really, if you're just doing individual stitches, you can just mark in the stitches that you've completed by tapping. So it's pretty straightforward. So this is something I saw on somebody's chart a couple of days ago. What they were doing is crossing out their stitches in a different color each day. And then it's really easy to figure out how many stitches you completed in a day. I'm not big on the whole spreadsheets and how many hours I stitched, but this is a pretty easy thing to do. It's just switch colors from day to day. And then figuring out how many stitches is really easy because all this is triangles and parallelograms. So for a parallelogram, the formula is length times width. It's just the same as for a rectangle. So I stitched 20 stitches across, and then I just counted the number of rows I did and multiplied them, and that's how you figure out how many stitches in a parallelogram. And then in a triangle, you do the same thing, except you divide it in half at the end. So same thing, 20 stitches across by however many rows, divide that by 2, and that's how I figured out how many stitches. So that's what I've been doing these last couple of days, and I really like that. And I've actually progressed quite a bit on this project. So that's how you use the GoodReader app exclusively to convert from your JPEGs to your PDFs and then annotating it. If you don't want to pay for a monthly subscription, I'm going to show you how to use GoodNotes, which you just spend your $8 and then it's yours forever. And it actually works very, very easily also. So for using GoodNotes to do your PDF conversion, you're going to open in Photos. So you go to Photos. Here's my stitching. I'm going to select just one. I click on the export and scroll down and find GoodNotes. So then we import, and there is our imported JPEG. We now need to convert this to a PDF, so you click on the check mark to select it. Then you go Export. It's already selected as PDF. Go Export, copy to GoodReader, and it is now in a PDF ready to annotate. So it really is next to no more time. Really, the only thing is remembering how to do it. And so that's why I've made all of these little cards. You can certainly take screenshots of them from my video, and then you have the instructions. So, you know, when you sporadically have to do this, you're not having to spend way too much time trying to remember how to do it, just like I did earlier today when I was putting together what I wanted to talk about on this video. So in a nutshell, that's how I use GoodReader for converting my paper charts into digital format and annotating it digitally. It's so much better to use, for me at least, than futzing around with paper. I hope you found this helpful.